Let me ask you something few doctors ever will. What if the way you've been having sex for years is slowly cutting off blood flow to your penis? Not in one sudden moment, not in a dramatic collapse, but silently, gradually, day by day, until one morning you realize you're not the man you used to be, and you don't even know how it happened. I'm Dr. James. I've spent over 30 years helping men protect, restore, and even reignite their health after 60, physically, emotionally, and intimately. In all that time, I've seen a troubling pattern. Men who feel fine, look fine, and still want intimacy, yet find themselves slowly losing their drive, their performance, and sometimes even their confidence, all without a clear medical explanation. And more often than not, it comes down to a handful of common, but rarely discussed sexual habits. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because what if I told you that the very things you were taught were normal, even healthy, could actually be weakening your blood flow and damaging your ability to connect, both physically and emotionally? I'm talking about 5 specific mistakes. Harmless on the surface, but over time, they rob you of vitality, erode intimacy, and tighten the very blood vessels your body needs for pleasure and strength. But here's the good news. Once you know what they are and how to reverse them, you can unlock better performance, deeper connection, and renewed confidence, even if you're already past 60. So stay with me. In just a moment, I'll walk you through each one, what they are, why they matter, and how to fix them, starting today. Before we continue, if you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss future videos made specifically to help men over 60 stay strong, sharp, and connected. And if this message speaks to you, just type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. I truly want to know how I can make these videos more useful for you. All right, let's get into it. The first mistake is one I see far too often because it hides in plain sight. It's not about what you do in the bedroom, but what your body stops doing long before the real trouble begins. And if you're over 60, this could be the earliest and most important warning sign your body will ever give you mistake. 1. Ignoring morning erections. It's just age. Morning erections. It's just age. I still remember a man named Robert who came to see me in my clinic. He was 67, retired, sharp-minded, in good shape for his age. He came in not because of any pain or disease, but because he just wasn't feeling like himself anymore. He wasn't waking up with morning erections like he used to. At first, he laughed it off. I guess that ship has sailed, Doc. Comes with the territory, right? I asked him something simple. Has your heart stopped beating in the morning? Has your brain stopped thinking? He looked puzzled. Of course not, he said. Then why, I asked, would your manhood stop responding unless something deeper is going on? See, what most men don't realize is that those spontaneous morning erections aren't just about sex. They're one of the body's built-in ways of keeping your circulatory system healthy. Specifically, the fine network of veins and blood vessels inside the penis. Those vessels are delicate. They need regular blood flow, oxygen-rich, pressurized circulation to stay open, elastic, and responsive. When those morning erections stop or become rare, it often means those vessels are starting to narrow, stiffen, or even get blocked altogether. It doesn't hurt. There's no obvious alarm, but slowly, the inner lining of your blood vessels, the endothelium, starts breaking down. Blood doesn't flow in as easily. The veins can't hold it the way they used to. And over time, your ability to get and stay firm in moments of intimacy quietly disappears. Here's the scary part. For many men, this is the first real warning that something is wrong, not just down there, but across the whole cardiovascular system. The penis is often the first place circulation problems show up because the blood vessels are so small and so sensitive. Ignoring that sign is like ignoring a ticking noise under the hood of your car until the engine finally fails. Robert hadn't had a morning erection in over a year. Within minutes of some basic testing, we discovered early-stage vascular blockage, not just in the groin, but around the heart as well. He'd had no idea. So if you're over 60 and you've noticed that morning activity has slowed or disappeared, don't shrug it off. That's not just age, that's your body waving a red flag. And it's only the beginning. Because while this mistake happens passively, the next one is something men actively do, thinking it helps. But in reality, it rewires the brain and starves the body of real connection. Let me show you what I mean. If you're still here and these insights are striking a chord with you, go ahead and type the number 1 in the comments so I know you're with me. Now let's keep going and take a closer look at the second mistake. Mistake 2. Relying too heavily on porn or fantasy. I once sat across from a man named Glenn Ben. He was 64, recently divorced, and trying to find his footing again, physically, emotionally, intimately. He was healthy on paper, walked a few times a week, and still had a good sense of humor. But when the conversation turned to performance, his smile faded. "It's just not the same anymore, Doc," he said. "When I'm with someone real, I freeze. But when I'm alone with a screen, it works." I nodded. I've heard this story more times than I can count, and it always leads to the same silent mistake. Relying on fantasy or digital stimulation to feel something. On the surface, it seems harmless. After all, it's private, it's easy, and it gives that quick hit of pleasure. But underneath, something much more damaging is happening. When a man consumes visual stimulation over and over, the brain begins to retrain its reward system. It no longer associates arousal with connection, touch, or real intimacy. Instead, it starts depending on hyperstimulated imagery, things that don't exist in real life. And that shift doesn't just affect the mind, it directly affects circulation. You see, arousal is what drives blood flow. It's what tells your body, "Send blood down now." But when the brain is conditioned to only react to pixels on a screen, real-life touch loses its power. Over time, arousal becomes weaker, blood flow becomes slower, and the veins that once filled and held that pressure, they stop responding the way they used to. Glenn's situation wasn't just about mental distraction, it was about physical detachment. His body had started ignoring his partner because his mind had been rewired. And the cost wasn't just emotional, it was vascular. What many men don't realize is that arousal, real arousal, isn't just about getting turned on. It's about keeping the blood vessels active, stretching them regularly, keeping nitric oxide flowing, so those veins stay open, soft, and alive. When arousal becomes detached from real intimacy, those veins are used less and less. Less usage means less blood means less oxygen, and less oxygen means blockage begins, slowly but surely. The good news is, Glenn made a change. It wasn't easy, but he started pulling away from screens and focusing more on real moments, touch, conversation, emotional presence. And in time, the response returned, because the blood vessels remembered what they were built for. So if you've been leaning too much on fantasy, now is the time to break that pattern. Because while this mistake affects the mind and circulation at once, The next one strikes even deeper into how men approach connection itself. And skipping it doesn't just affect performance, it shortens it. Mistake 3. Rushing or skipping foreplay. Rushing or skipping foreplay? I remember a couple, Mark and Linda, who came to see me after 38 years of marriage. Mark was 66, kind, soft-spoken, but clearly frustrated. He said, "I love my wife, Doc, but things just aren't clicking anymore. I feel rushed, tense, and half the time I can't even get going." When I gently asked about foreplay, he chuckled awkwardly. "At our age," he said, "we don't have the energy for all that anymore." That right there is the third mistake. A quiet one, a subtle one, but also one of the most destructive. You see, as we get older, blood flow doesn't just slow down, it needs more time to get moving. The vessels that supply the penis isn't as elastic as it once was. They need encouragement, warm-up, patience. That's what foreplay is. It's not just for romance, it's biological preparation. When you skip that process, it's like trying to take off with a cold engine. You put pressure on a system that isn't ready, and over time, that pressure damages the very veins you need to perform. Veins that aren't fully dilated can't carry enough blood in. Worse, they can't hold it. The result? Weaker erections, shorter duration, and less sensation. What many men don't realize is that foreplay actually protects your blood vessels. It allows nitric oxide to release naturally, relaxing the smooth muscles and letting blood flow more freely. It gives time for arousal to build, not just mentally, but physically, so that your entire circulatory system is engaged and responsive. Without that time, you're forcing a performance on half-prepared vessels. And that's when problems start. Repeatedly forcing blood into tense, underprepared tissue causes microtears, stiffness, and eventually scarring. That's how blockage begins. I told Mark that foreplay wasn't a luxury at his age, it was a necessity. Not just for Linda, but for his own vascular health. He needed to stop thinking of it as extra and start treating it like the foundation. The beauty is, once he did, everything began to change. Their intimacy improved, their confidence grew, and most importantly, his circulation responded. Because when the body feels safe, when it's given time, it begins to heal. So if you've been rushing through or skipping that crucial step, thinking it saves time or effort, think again. You might be saving a few minutes, but you're costing your blood vessels far more than you know. Now, the next mistake is one I see nearly every day. And it doesn't happen in the bedroom at all. It happens in your chair, your car, your recliner, and it's quietly stealing your strength, your energy, and yes, your intimacy. Let's talk about it. Mistake 4. Not moving your body enough. There's a conversation I'll never forget. It was with a man named Harold, 72, retired firefighter, proud father of 4. He came in for a routine checkup, but as we talked, he opened up. "I still love my wife, Doc," he said, "but lately, it's like my body is just not listening to me anymore." I asked him about his daily routine. He paused and admitted, "Honestly, I sit most of the day. TV, reading, the occasional drive. I guess I've slowed down." Harold's story is all too familiar, and it leads us right into the fourth mistake. One that doesn't feel like a mistake at all. It's not about what you're doing in the bedroom. It's about what you're not doing the rest of the day. When you're inactive, sitting for hours, not moving your body, your circulation starts to stagnate. Blood doesn't flow freely, it pools. The vessels, especially the small veins in the groin, become less responsive. Over time, that reduced activity leads to what I call vascular dormancy, where your veins begin to stiffen, narrow, and in some cases, even clog. Your penis, like every part of your body, relies on oxygen-rich blood delivered through open, flexible veins. But those veins don't stay healthy on their own. They need movement. They need regular muscle engagement, heart rate increase, and blood pumping through them to stay alive and clear. When that doesn't happen, those once supple vessels begin to close in on themselves. Circulation drops. Nitric oxide production slows, and the result? Softer erections, lower stamina, longer recovery time, and a quiet sense of frustration that builds with every attempt at intimacy. I told Harold what I'll tell you now. Motion is medicine. I'm not saying you need to run marathons or lift heavy weights, but a daily walk, some light stretching, a bit of strength work, just 20 to 30 minutes a day, can reactivate the vascular system, improve blood pressure, and restore blood flow to places you might have thought were beyond repair. And something else happens when you start moving again. You feel stronger, more alive, more in tune with your body. That confidence alone can make a world of difference between performance anxiety and real presence. So the next time you feel too tired to move, remember, it's not just your muscles that suffer, it's your veins, it's your energy, and it's your intimacy. But as harmful as inactivity can be to your physical circulation, the final mistake might be even more damaging because it cuts off connection at the emotional level, and that too has a direct impact on your performance. Let's go there. Mistake 5. Avoiding emotional connection or vulnerability. Some of the hardest conversations I've had with patients didn't happen during physical exams. They happened when I asked, "How's your relationship?" That's when the real silence starts. One man, Frank, 69, looked down at the floor and said, "We sleep in the same bed, but it's like there's a wall between us." I don't know how we got here. And that right there is the 5th mistake, one most men never think of. But it may be the most destructive of all. Holding back emotionally, avoiding vulnerability, and letting emotional distance grow quietly over time. What many don't realize is that intimacy and circulation are deeply connected. Emotional disconnection causes stress, and stress constricts blood vessels. When you're disconnected from your partner, when there's tension, resentment, or unspoken fears, your body feels it. Your nervous system stays guarded, and guarded men rarely experience full, responsive blood flow. It's not just a mood issue, it's physical. Chronic emotional stress triggers cortisol, which hardens arteries, reduces nitric oxide production, and gradually tightens the very veins responsible for healthy erections. The result is a body that's physically unable to open up because, emotionally, it's been closed off for too long. I told Frank something I'll tell you now. You don't need to become a poet or wear your heart on your sleeve, but you do need to be willing to be real. Connection isn't about grand romantic gestures. It's about presence, looking your partner in the eye, asking how they feel, admitting when you're scared or unsure. That's where trust begins to rebuild. And with trust comes relaxation. And with relaxation comes blood flow. It's all tied together. When the emotional wall starts to crack, something powerful happens. The body softens, the breath deepens, and the blood begins to move again. Not just through the heart, but through the entire vascular system. I've seen men go from months of dysfunction to vibrant, connected intimacy, all by opening up just a little more every day. So if you've been holding back, thinking it's safer to stay quiet, ask yourself if that silence is worth what it's costing you. Because over time, emotional distance doesn't just hurt the heart, it slowly closes off the veins that give you life. And now that we've walked through these 5 silent mistakes, you might be wondering, what exactly can you do to reverse them? What simple, practical steps can reawaken circulation, restore confidence, and rebuild intimacy after 60? That's exactly what we'll cover next. Conclusion: reclaiming your circulation, confidence, and connection. After 60, if there's one thing I've learned after 3 decades of working with men over 60, it's this: what feels normal often isn't. We tell ourselves things like, it's just aging, it's too late to change, or maybe this is how it's supposed to be now. But deep down, many of us know when something's not right, when our energy fades, when intimacy becomes distant, when our body stops responding the way it once did. And more often than not, it's not your age. It's your habits and the silent mistakes that slowly close off the very blood vessels, keeping you alive, present, and connected. We started by talking about morning erections, how they're not just about sex, but a signal that blood is flowing well, that your vascular system is responsive. When they stop showing up, it's your body whispering that something's changing. Then we looked at the hidden impact of relying too heavily on fantasy, how it rewires your brain, dulls your arousal, and ultimately weakens the natural pathways that drive blood into the places that matter most. We talked about foreplay and how skipping it isn't just about rushing intimacy. It's about skipping the very process that opens the veins, relaxes the tissue, and prepares the body for full, healthy circulation. We touched on physical movement, how staying sedentary weakens not only your muscles, but your entire vascular system. Blood flow isn't passive, it needs motion to stay alive. And when motion stops, those veins start to close silently. And finally, we looked at the emotional wall, the one no one talks about. The space that grows between partners when words stop flowing, when vulnerability disappears, and how that emotional disconnection doesn't just hurt the heart. It physically constricts blood vessels, cutting off intimacy from the inside out. But here's the truth that I hope you carry with you today: none of this is permanent. The body is more forgiving than we give it credit for. And the moment you become aware, truly aware of these 5 mistakes, is the moment healing begins. Circulation can improve, nerves can recover, confidence can return, intimacy can be rekindled. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to return to the version of you that knows how to move, feel, connect, and care. That version is still there. It's not gone. It's just waiting for the right invitation. And now you have the roadmap. The question is, what will you do with it?